Hello everybody and welcome to this very strange and different sort of video. First of all, I hope you're all doing well considering the current circumstances, and apologies for being pretty absent over the past however many thousands of years it's been. I just haven't felt like making anything until now, and this is, like I say, it's going to be something quite different for me. It's not going to be based on music or films or anything like that. It's more based around something that I've been aware of for some time, but has only, in my knowledge anyway, recently become sort of in the mainstream, shall we say, on like social media like YouTube and Reddit and things like that. And it is something called Submechanophobia. And I vaguely spoke about this in a video that's long since been deleted from this channel. I believe it was one of my train of thought videos. And it was like it was a flippant sort of comment that I made, that I was scared of, well, for those of you who don't know, submechanophobia. Submechanophobia, official internet definition, I believe. I'm going to try and sort of crop this in and edit it as best I can, because I am by no means an expert. Also, new camera. Submechanophobia is the fear of submerged man-made objects. People with submechanophobia are often afraid of large propellers, buoys, sunken ships or underwater animatronics. And it's similar to thalassophobia, which is the fear of the ocean. The second bit I don't quite agree with. What does it say? People may think they can be sunk into the man-made object, or dangerous creatures or dead bodies could pop up or could pop up in front of them. That's not where I'm at, I don't really think. It's really hard to explain. So basically, man-made objects underwater, primarily for me, it's kind of ships and planes and cars, and recently, thanks to YouTube, all credit goes to the people whose videos I'm going to show, by the way, underwater animatronics and machinery and things like that, which you'll find quite a lot in theme parks, which obviously, being a huge fan of theme parks, makes it kind of more fascinating, because it's stuff I'm going to encounter at some point. It's not like the phobia of, I don't know, pterodactyls or something, because you're never going to meet a pterodactyl. But this is sort of quite a real thing. Not that I'm ever going to go diving for shipwrecks, obviously, because that would be horrendous. This is a real phobia. This is something that... this sounds like everyone else who's ever made a video about it. I thought it was just me. It's quite strange, because this was a few years ago. I literally thought I was the only person in the world who's ever seen a shipwreck and gone, that's really, really eerie. And apparently not, and a lot of people apparently feel the same way, because it wasn't really talked about until, like I say, recently. It's kind of boomed on the internet and YouTube. Screaming children outside. So I'm briefly going to talk about where I think my phobia came from, and then I'm going to subject myself to torture for your entertainment by looking at videos and photos that trigger my submechanophobia. So just FYI, if you are someone who suffers from the same thing as me, suffers being like a bit of a stretch, because I wouldn't say I suffer from it, but yeah, trigger warning, there's going to be grim shit in this video. So, as far as I can remember, my submechanophobia goes back to a dream I had, and a lot of the times I forget my dreams, but this one is really, really vivid, so you can sort of tell it meant something, or it's caused something. So, the dream is I'm in front of like a dock or something. It's like a wooden boardwalk out into what appeared to be a lake, although in the dream it would make more sense if it was an ocean. But in my head it's a lake. And it's a first-person vision of me running down this boardwalk, and I jump off the end and I shut my eyes, obviously because I'm about to go underwater. Shut my eyes, I feel myself get submerged and everything, and not a second later I open my eyes underwater, and I'm very, very far down in a very large expanse of water, and right next to me is this enormous sort of rotting, rusty shipwreck. And that was it. I feel like I woke up at that point, because I don't remember anything else, but I remember waking up not feeling like I'd had a nightmare about sort of zombies or being chased by a serial killer or something. It was just uneasy. It wasn't out and out fear, it was just a really, really sense of, like, really a sense of unease and uncomfortableness. So that would have been all well and good had I not then gone onto Google and tried to find out what it was. I came across the word submechanophobia, but the definition was fairly loose at the time, and then I decided to click on Google Images. And thus began my submechanophobia, because that is the worst thing you can do. So yeah, I don't really know why it's a phobia. I mean, a phobia by definition is irrational, and that the definition I showed earlier sort of tries to explain it away by saying, oh, you know, you're scared that a dead body is going to pop out, or that a dangerous creature's hiding in it. It's not that for me. I can't speak for other people, but obviously with shipwrecks and things, there's probably going to be bodies and dangerous creatures, but that doesn't explain animatronics, because you know, animatronics are in theme parks, which are perfectly safe. So I don't know if it's the fear of the machinery or falling in. I know for me, the idea of sort of being on a dark ride at night or like being inside a dark ride at night when everything's shut off, and knowing they're under the water, sat there sort of eyes open, looking, that really freaks me out. The idea of touching them freaks me out. And it's not even a fear of, it's not like thalassophobia, because that's a fear of the ocean, and the ocean doesn't scare me as such. Because I can look at images of, like, you know, underwater valleys and things like that, and it's a bit intimidating, but they don't give me the same feeling. It's not a fear of water, and it's not a fear of animatronics. I'm not necessarily scared of animatronics. They're a bit eerie, albeit above water. Although, side note, I did find this video, credit to whoever made it, of someone testing out old, decrepit animatronics. I'll play it now.
Okay, this is Rolf the Wolf saying thanks for using the show selector.
That's an exception, because that's horrible. But that's not what we're focusing on in this video. I'm really sorry you had to see that. Yeah, I don't know where the fear comes from. I don't know what it's a fear of exactly. I don't know what the rationale is behind having this phobia, but a lot of people have it, as you'll see on YouTube. I don't know if this video has been suggested to you, if you've searched for it, but down the side there might be quite a lot of other related videos. Theme Park Crazy, I believe, is the channel, also did a video about underwater animatronics recently that blew up, and it's all kind of spiraled from there. So that's my talky bit out of the way. I'll probably put a tag earlier in the video if people just want to skip to me looking at shit that makes me uncomfortable. Yeah, I'm now just going to show you some examples and tell you how they make me feel. So I'm going to start with this image, which makes me uncomfortable just looking at it. Scale is quite important, I find, in these videos, because you can see the divers sort of down on the bottom left. It wouldn't be half as bad, I don't think, if the divers weren't there, because you can see how big it is. Without them there, there's no sort of real way you can gauge how big the ship is. That's a big ship, and that tells you that it's a big ship. I'm starting with this one because this is the closest image I could find to what was in my dream. The only difference is the one in my dream was upright. This one sort of obviously on the seabed, tilted to the side. But I, basically opened my eyes in this dream, and I'm basically in the position of the scuba divers, and it was horrendous, and that makes me really uncomfortable. In a way, I feel like me researching this has desensitized me slightly, because looking at this doesn't send chills down me like it used to, but it's still not something I enjoy looking at. And for me, I don't know about other people, it has a lot to do with how sort of clear or murky the water is. If you can see things really clearly, it's not quite as bad. If it's murky water and you can just make out vague shapes and shadows, that for me is sort of worse. And I know that doesn't make any sense, because why would you want to see the thing you're scared of? I don't know, but that's the first image I'm going to start off with, and it's horrendous, so I'm going to get rid of that. Now this one really gets me, so I'm going to try not to look at it. It's the one of the plane sort of coming out. This is the example of murky water. It's the idea of just being swimming and seeing it. I think that might be it. If the idea of swimming, if the water's clear, you can see things from a distance and you know they're there. Whereas when the water's murky, it's more likely to loom out of the darkness at you and be really, really close before you notice it, like that plane is, and that freaks me out. I don't know if I'm scared of seeing faces in the cockpit or something. It's like the darkness at the bottom of the picture, the sort of imagining how far down in the water this is and how it got there really makes me uncomfortable. So yeah, there's that one. Now this is a big one. People don't like propellers, and there's a very real reason for that. I think if you're next to a propeller and obviously it starts spinning and you turn into mincemeat, that's a very real phobia, or a very real fear, should I say. So I thought I'd throw this in. These don't affect me as badly. I don't know why. It's still awful, because again, you've got the scale of how big that propeller is from the person. In fact, there's another image that's, I believe, next to it. I'm using my iPad to scroll through these, but I'll put them up on the screen. This one triggers me worse, and I don't know why. It looks like the same ship, and it might be the same person. But it's not even a fear of it starting to spin. I think it's just because you're next to something that moves and is so big in comparison to you, and there's so much empty space around you. It's not like you can just hop off and there's ground there. You're suspended, because you look how much water's below that person. And they've clearly got a guide rope and everything, and it just still knocks me sick, and it really makes me uncomfortable, so I'm going to close that one. Now this, I'm going to show the first video because this is slightly related to what we've just been talking about. The videos get me worse because I know that the pictures aren't going to move and nothing unexpected is going to come out of them. The videos freak me out slightly more. I'm warning you before, people who don't like propellers, this is a propeller video. And what, what I like about this is the person who's filming it is clearly also quite startled that the propeller suddenly comes out of the water at them. It's not moving, but you could hear them. I'll try and get the audio in. You can hear them in the video actually get quite shocked by it. So I'm going to play it now. Again, murky water. There it is, there it is, there it is. Oh no, 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 no. I'm trying not to up my reactions because I know that's like quite an easy thing to do, but this genuinely really does get me. It's a pretty good size. Yeah, that's fucking horrendous. I'm not going to watch that again. This is an interesting one because this I remember used to scare me as a kid. So when we went swimming, I believe any pool that has a wave machine has these. I think they're called wave chambers. It's basically where the mechanism is that creates the waves and, you know, obviously sucks the water in and pushes it back out. But I remember at my local pool, this was at the deep end, and I used to, I'd only just seen the original It with Tim Curry, and I used to swim to the sort of the bottom. It was about 1.8 meters, I think, the deep end. Swim to the bottom and hold onto the bars and look, and it was just black behind it. You couldn't see a thing. And I always just used to remember, was it my dad or something told me Pennywise lived in there? Yeah, that's a horrible image, but this now creeps me out for a different reason. And it's not as bad because I know it's in a pool and it's like relatively safe. But that just takes me back to being a kid, and I don't know, I wouldn't be able to do it now, I don't think. If I went down, I wouldn't be able to hold onto the bars and look through. And it's making my palms sweat. Now this one's interesting because it sort of solidifies what I said earlier regarding the animatronics, where when they're, obviously it's not on land, but when they're not completely submerged, they're not quite as bad for me. Like, this is still something I would not want to get anywhere near, but this is an image I can comfortably look at, and I can recognise that it's actually quite tragic rather than scary that, you know, a piece of engineering's ended up like this. But it's still, you know, imagining sort of being in the water around it and feeling how rough and rusty it is, and yeah, that it's still not great, but this isn't quite as bad because you've obviously got a bit of normality in the background with the sky and the trees and everything. So yeah, that one's not too bad. I'm sort of coming to the end of the shipwrecky sort of videos now. I'm going to get onto animatronics and that in a few minutes, but this is another image I came across that isn't one that I'd particularly considered before until I saw it. This, I believe, is the supports of an oil rig that's obviously in the ocean, and the water's fairly clear, so you can sort of see what's going on. But again, it's the scale. It wouldn't be as bad if the people weren't there, because you can see how big it is, and the fact that to be in that position you'd be surrounded by all this rusting metal that's been sat there for God knows how long. That idea kind of freaks me out as well, especially with shipwrecks like the Titanic. It's been sat at the bottom of the ocean for over 100 years. There's people who've been born, lived a life, and then passed away in the time that ship has been sat there. That freaks me out. Obviously, I don't think this oil rig's been there for half as long as that. But, you know, the moss and all the algae and the stuff that grows on it really doesn't do me any favours. I'm not sure why that makes it worse. But there's fish that are clearly quite happy to be there, if that's any consolation. A couple of pictures I found on Instagram of ship-related things as well. This is awful. Again, it's like, the water looks fairly clear and clean. It's just the idea of being so overshadowed, not overshadowed, what's the word? Do you know, just having it there right next to you and it being so big and so intimidating, and imagining what's under there and imagining your feet sort of touching it and brushing up against it, and it just really freaks me out. It's not quite as bad because you can't see the underside of it, but just that's more the idea of what's going on underneath that gets me. And in a similar sort of way, this one does as well. Yeah, this, same reasons as the last one, just the idea of what's under the water, but yeah, that's not something you would ever find me doing. So I found a video of the Titanic, and this, I think I've seen this video before, because this doesn't get me quite as bad, although everything I fear is in this video. I'm just going to play clips of it and I'll talk when I feel like I need to talk. See the bow coming out of the darkness again, and how decayed it is. I think that's quite eerie. But I can almost... Oh god, no, that's bad. Yeah, that's quite bad. The thing is with the Titanic, I almost like... I don't know why, because of the history of the Titanic, I feel like there's more beauty there than there is with a lot of other shipwrecks. A lot of them just are horrendous, but this, because you know more about the background of why it's there and how it ended up there, there's more tragedy in this for me than there is fear. Not to say that that doesn't make me really, really quite uncomfortable. Hand forward a little bit. That's bad. That's bad because you can see how deep the water is. You can... I can feel myself sweating. Yeah, not good. And there's one more ship I want to talk about. And that's the SS Kamloops. As you can see, I've screenshotted here. It's a 250 feet long freighter launched in 1924, sank in 29, located in 77 on the northwest side of Isle Royale in Lake Superior. The reason I want to mention this, and I want to be as respectful as possible, is because this video does show who they call Old Whitey, which is apparently someone who went down with the ship. I want to say now, if you haven't seen this video, you don't see anything graphic. It's just that you do catch a glimpse of what is an actual body, and that's sort of the reason I want to talk about this, because this is awful. Like, I'm trying to be respectful because it's a grave site, you know, and you need to be respectful. But see, it's right. It's here. It's the white. It's the legs, I believe. I don't know if he's in a white uniform or something. Wait till it pans back. There, that white mass there is a yeah, that is someone who went down with the ship, and due to, oh no, it's getting too close. It's getting, right, I'm shutting that off. The cold of the water and the lack of oxygen apparently slows the decaying process, so the body's quite well preserved. And I know that's grim, but I just wanted to throw it in because I believe I've only ever seen it in one other video talking about submechanophobia, and I feel like obviously it's just quite an interesting thing to note. Now, I want to talk about a couple of movie scenes. I'm going to talk about the obvious one first. It's in Jaws. If you've ever seen Jaws, you probably know the bit I'm going to show. And again, this is kind of related to the idea that bodies went down with a ship and there will be bodies around it. Although that's not what the fear or the phobia is sort of related to, it is something I wanted to show because it's quite a famous scene, so I'll play that now. Now, I don't feel like this scene contributed in any way to my submechanophobia, although it did scare the shit out of me when I first saw it. Because there's not much focus given to the actual wreck of the ship, and the boat is quite freshly sunk. There it is. So it's a wooden boat as well, so it's not like rusty or anything. Yeah, that's a notable scene. As a horror film fan, I feel like I had to throw that in there, as well as a scene from this movie, which is directed by Charles Lawton, starring Robert Mitchum and Shelley Winters, is it? Yes, Shelley Winters, Night of the Hunter. Really good movie, and not one that you just typically associate with horror of this kind. It's more of a sort of dark sort of thriller. But there is a scene where a character in the film is tied into a car, and then the car is pushed into a lake. But it looks like a lake, or it might be a river, but I'm going to show the clip of that now because this does affect me slightly more than the Jaws clip, and I'm not entirely sure why.
Can't nobody say I didn't do my best to save her.
Incidentally, Robert Mitchum does play a really fucking good part in this movie. Yeah, not pleasant. The really technically impressive as well. I think when was this movie released? It's 1955. I mean, technically very good. You know, you've got underwater photography, and obviously there's a current there in the water that they've managed to capture. And but with this, again, I feel like as much as it should trigger my submechanophobia, it doesn't in the same way. I think I find the reeds more scary, and the fact that her hair's sort of flowing and she's just there. I think that's more sort of scary. That shot's quite upsetting. I believe it goes to a wide shot. Yeah. So, watch Jaws and The Night of the Hunter if you haven't already. Quite noteworthy. Again, not typically submechanophobia focused, but two scenes that take place underwater that are quite unsettling that I thought I'd throw in. Now, the last thing I'm going to throw in before we talk about animatronics is this book. Well, not specifically this book. I can't remember which book it was in, but it was one of the Ripley's Believe It or Not series. And I don't think it's this one. I've had a quick flick through and I can't see it. There's a photo in one of these books that's about underwater sculptures. I did the sort of humanoid sculptures. I'll throw a couple of pictures up now. This is the one that was in the book, and this used to really freak me out. And even back, it must have been a really early issue of the book. I'm guessing like 2010-ish. So this is 10 years ago, and even then, when I was like, how old was I? 12 or something like that when I first saw this picture. Even then, it was the idea of them just suddenly appearing out of the dark. Do you know? Because I mean, yeah, this is quite a well-lit photo, but do you know, at night when it's dark and it's cold and it's quiet, and the fact they're all just stood there, that upsets me quite a lot, and it always did. And my friend, in fact, do you know, it's very bizarre. My friend Ellie, who I used to feature on this channel a lot. Hi, Ellie. I don't know if she shared the phobia or if she was just kind of humouring me, but she used to find this really creepy as well. And additionally, I showed my mum some of these photos earlier, and she doesn't like them either. So that kind of goes to show how sort of common this is. Another one, oh god, that one's fucking awful. I forgot to put that one in there. Sorry. I don't know if that's the same sculpture or it must be the same group of sculptures. That, to me, is worse because you can see how deep the water is, roughly how big the statues are, the fact that that person's above them, the idea of being above them and not knowing they're there. That's the thing with shipwrecks with me. You know, just knowing this could be something literally that far off your foot and it just, you know, not registering. That's awful. Where's the other one? This one as well. I can't tell how big this is, but this, in my eyes, looks bigger than the other sculptures, and it is just fucking awful. I'm, you know, obviously props to the art. I don't mean awful. I'm not slagging your art off. I'm just saying it's triggering, okay? Yeah, obviously, you know, it's a very competently made sculpture. It's very much of a muchness. But yeah, that one in particular is one that I really don't like. The dark eyes, the white face. It reminds me of a horror film, but I can't remember which film. But there's that face is featured in something before, and I can't quite remember what. And speaking of horror films, this circulated quite heavily on Facebook, so you may have seen this. At the bottom of a lake in the US somewhere, I'm sure the video will explain at some point, is a statue of Jason Voorhees of the Friday the 13th franchise. And it was placed down there as a sort of intentional joke because it's apparently a lake where a lot of trainee divers go down. And it's not shallow water either, this is quite far down. And again, it's covered in shit. It's just staring into the dark water. I think a few other things have made their way down there as well. I think a few... Oh, God! Sorry. Oh, sorry, I forgot they did a real close-up of his face. It just caught me off guard. Oh, right, that was awful. Yeah, the video is showing now. The other people have jumped on the bandwagon and sort of chucked a few things down there as a joke as well. So these ones, as much as they're more light-hearted, that's actually probably given me the biggest scare so far. Yeah, I get this. Like, I wouldn't want to come across it, but because it was put there as a joke, it sort of isn't quite as bad. Obviously, no one sinks a ship as a joke. Yeah, skeletons and stuff. Yeah, well, that's enough of that. So now I'm going to move on to the animatronic side of things. Now, this is the side that seems to be slightly more popular on YouTube, which is kind of why I wanted to leave it till last. Yeah, the idea of not so much statue, it's generally more animatronics and things that move and are mechanical underwater, but it's not mechanical in the sense that, you know, a plane or a ship is mechanical. It's something that's there to entertain, like, you know, things that you find in dark rides at theme parks and Disney World that just have a really unsettling air about them. and I will explain what I mean. I do quickly want to talk about Blackpool Pleasure Beach, which is a really historic amusement park in the UK. They've got a lot of variety there. There's sort of wooden coasters from the 20s. They've got recently installed the first double launch roller coaster in Europe, I believe it is. Yeah, really, really great place to visit if you ever get the chance. But there is a ride there called River Caves, which is a sort of boat ride, a dark ride. Lasts, I think, about 5 or 6 minutes. Nothing intense about it, really. There's no drop. Oh, well, there's a little drop at the end. But yeah, it's not a scary ride by any means. It's more of a chilled out thing between the bigger rides that you'd go on. And it basically takes you through various historic scenes. So there's, it sort of takes you through the Valley of the Kings. It takes you through sort of a jungle environment. There's a cave, as in the name of the ride. But there is a few animatronic dinosaurs in this that I wanted to mention, because I think, again, I've only seen this talked about in one other video. And the first few times I rode this, I used to kind of dread it because there's animatronic dinosaurs in it, but they're not too bad. They're not as bad. This is sort of entry level Submechanophobia. Credit as well to Ride Review, who did this video and the video I'm going to show next. Really lovely footage, well lit and everything. So yeah, as you can see, a couple of dinosaurs, they don't move, they're not too bad. Again, they're not really in the water, but I can understand how that would trigger Submechanophobia. This one used to freak me out. Is it a Stegosaurus? I'm not good with dinosaurs, but this guy here with the tilting head, the idea of him just being stood at night doesn't do me any favours. Also, I believe this must be a recent video as well, because they've fixed a lot of the lighting and they've added fog machines, or like steam generators, whatever you want to call them. That scene used to be quite darkly lit, although it is now lit slightly better. This is the room that used to freak me out. Not this guy on the left, the guy on the right, because he's really close to the boat. And again, the animatronics in his jaw, it's not really, you know, it's not animatronic in the sense that a lot of Submechanophobia things are animatronic, but it is in the water, and I thought it was worth a mention. That used to freak me out because he does loom quite sort of close to the boat. I'm going to leave this play. I don't mean to steal your content, Ride Review. Link in the description if you want to watch the full thing, but yeah, I just kind of want to show off how good this ride is. In fact, no, I'm going to keep this on for another reason, because there is, again, Submechanophobia or not, there's a mannequin in this that used to freak me out because it doesn't have any fucking arms. I think, obviously it's not designed to. I think the arms must have come off and they haven't got around to fixing it. Beautiful scene. This used to go through like a miners' cafe, I think. There used to be like seating areas above it, but now they've closed it off and it's all sort of starry and twinkly and lovely. But yeah, I'm going to pan forward to that armless guy, because again, you only see him briefly, but it does freak me out. So it's as you come around this corner, he's on the right on like a paddle boat. There he is there. Again, not in the water, but noteworthy because it's spooky. Also at Blackpool Pleasure Beach is Valhalla, which if you don't think it's the best water ride in the world, then I really don't want you watching my content. Seriously though, it's really, really good if you can get a chance to go on it. Quite a lot of this sort of stuff, although it's a more intense ride, so you tend to sort of fly past them a lot quicker, so you don't get a chance to take them in as much. I just wanted to throw this in because I want to give it a shout out. It's a fucking great ride. Like, you get drenched, and yeah, as you can see in this video, yeah, there's a few bits of sort of like animatronic dogs near the start. It's quite Viking based, so there's a couple of sort of images of Norse gods and weird shit like that. But yeah, not really Submechanophobia related, just wanted to give this ride a quick mention. This is where it gets more intense, because this image is probably the one that makes me the most nervous, and I don't really know why, but I'm trying to avoid looking at it. It's the one of the dinosaur with its sort of teeth pointing out like that in the water, and it's so close to the camera. I don't know what ride it's from. I'm by no means an expert, so I don't really know where a lot of these are from. But that's horrendous. The eye, the teeth, the skin, the fact that the water's murky and you can't see the full thing, it gets worse the more you look at it. I don't know why. And I think, is that a scuba diver next to it? I would not want to be in the water with this. This is one of those that where the fear is being in the water with it, because that's horrible and it looks dangerous. Moving on. This one as well. This one's one of the ones that affects me slightly more, and again, I don't know why, because it doesn't look that threatening. There's a video of, I don't know if it's the same one or if it's a similar one, but there is a video that I'll show now. This one. Again, props to the person who made this video. This is not my content. It looks like it's definitely the same dinosaur. I don't know if it's the same animatronic. That's Yeah. The eyes on that one, I've decided. I think that's what it is. The eyes on that one that really freak me out. Those are the two that really freak me out. I don't know why those two were the worst. So for me, it's sort of, I'm scrolling through the rest of the things I've got to show. It sort of gets a little bit easier for me here, but not much. Moby Dick, based on the Gregory Peck movie. Yeah, it was at Pleasure Island, I believe, and this was a big boy. This was it's one of the bigger animatronics I've managed to find. In fact, again, I think there's footage of it. So this is footage from, I think, the 1960s, so you'll excuse the quality on this one. Yeah, it didn't do anything too special. It just rose up out of the water and then, yeah, fired its little water spout. This one, the eye is quite creepy, but it doesn't bother me that much. Again, it's one of those where I think being in the water with it or seeing it in person would be much worse. Legend has it that this is still sat in the water unused and all broken because they couldn't fish it out for whatever reason. So there is the idea that it's been sat at the bottom of this sort of body of water for however long. That's quite unsettling. But yeah, again, that one's not too bad. I know that one gets a lot of people, but for me, that one's not too bad. This is, yeah, out of the sort of ride animatronics, this one does get me. I think this one is because of how big it is, because it comes out of nowhere and it is quite tall, and you have to sort of imagine how deep the water has to be for this to be there. Like, I think that's what creeps me out with this one, as well as the face. Hang on, yeah, this is a slightly different view, or I don't know if they changed the sort of the cycle it does, but yeah, you get a much better view of this thing's face, and the idea of that being sat underwater really doesn't sit well with me. That's awful. Oh, fucking hell, that's awful. Yeah, that's one of the ones that affects me quite badly. Again, just the idea of being under the water when the ride's off. It's not even, for me, it's not even getting, like, I know a lot of people are like say they have a fear of getting caught in the mechanisms and stuff, and for me, I don't think it's even that. It's just the idea of it being here and just it looking at me and being there and me touching it and it feeling wet and, oh no, that's not a nice one for me. Now this is apparently a thing called a bunyip, which, I mean, someone in the comments can probably explain more than me about what this is. Again, the thing itself isn't too scary. It's not painted particularly well. I mean, it's just painted black, isn't it? But again, it's because it keeps going and keeps going, and you think, how fucking deep is that water? Yeah, the bunyip never used to freak me out until I saw that video. That sort of shows how big it is. Additionally, I don't know if they changed it around, because the original bunyip they had apparently was just a wreck. I don't know if they replaced it with this one or if I'm thinking of a different bunyip, but there are also photos of these. Yeah, that's a bunyip as well. I don't know if it's the bunyip. It looks like it might be, because there's the door in the background you can sort of see. It looks like it might be the same one that they just sort of refurbished. But that looks worse. And the idea of that being as big as the one I've just shown is really not nice. And they gave it a kid as well at one point. How could they possibly get away with that? Even if you're not submechanophobic, that is horrible. The eyes on the little one remind me of, you know, when you're eating like a jam tart or something and the little metal bits that are left over. Yeah, so they're not very nice. Now we're going to get onto the sea serpents. Now these are probably the, along with the bunyip, they're probably the poster children of the whole submechanophobia thing. So if I'm remembering this right, they're taken from two different rides. The Submarine Voyage and 20,000 Leagues Under the Sea, and they both had different sea serpents. I don't know which is which, but these are quite notorious for being unsettling. That image is quite unsettling. I believe, is that when it was underwater? It looks like it is, because there's also photos of it not in water, like that. It's a set from Saw. That's a set from Saw. That's what makes that one creepy. Again, there's a few other photos of it just sort of sat, decaying in its juices. But then the other sea serpent, if I can find a thing of that. Again, this is old footage, so you'll have to excuse the quality. I don't know which of the two rides this is, but it did also feature a giant squid, which you're currently seeing in grainy black and white, which somehow makes it even worse. And I don't like how close that's getting. No. Nearly touched the... Oh, it's still there! I'm actually sweating. That made me sweat. Mermaids. This is a ride from like the 50s. How are they... How do they look better than animatronics now? Stop getting so close to the fucking camera. Yes. This video is getting me worse than I thought it would. But yeah, there is a sea serpent at the end of this video, which I will just pan forward to for you now. The thing is with this one, and I don't know if it's the same as with the other one, but there's a build up to it, because you're in this submarine going, and then you see like the hump, and then you see the next one, and then you see a third one. You can see it now. It's like, you don't see the face until the very end. And the thing is with this one, it looks really goofy when it's out of water. There's another hump. It looks really goofy when it's out of water, and even when it's in the water, it looks kind of goofy, but how are they smiling? How can you smile when that is looking at you? They almost look better than animatronics now, and I don't really know how or why. But yeah, that video was nightmare fuel. In fact, I think there's a colour video of that same sea serpent. Yeah, that's creepy, but it doesn't affect me quite as bad. So this is the Bruce the Shark animatronic from... This one looks like the movie. I don't think this is the ride. That doesn't bother me as much because it's not in water. Well, it is in water, but it's not submerged in water. That one I find more interesting because you can kind of, having seen the movie, you can sort of see the mechanics behind the shark, which is something I always wondered about, because apparently the shark was an absolute nightmare to work with and barely worked. I'd throw this in obviously because it's a mechanical animatronic that is underwater at some point. But yeah, that's more interesting to me than it is scary. This, on the other hand, is scary. This one I believe is from Jaws the Ride, which was at Universal Studios for a time. And I vaguely remember when we went to Florida, I think my mum and a few other members of my family went on it, but I didn't because I was too young or something, or I didn't want to. Maybe I knew back then. Yeah, I think I was only 5 or something when we went there, so I'll show a quick video of Jaws the Ride, I think. So there you've got a sinking boat. Doesn't affect me too badly. You know that when I first found out about the animatronics thing, Jaws was the one that used to freak me out the most, but now I think I've slightly been desensitized to it, other than the very last one, which is horrible. So you've got sort of the odd fin and things like that. Yeah, it's not too bad. When it gets close to the boat, it sort of freaks me out, like here. I think it jumps right up. Yeah. See, it looks clean. That's I think one of the reasons that one doesn't bother me as much is because it looks like it's being well maintained. This next one, although it's supposed to look like this, doesn't look as well maintained, and then it lurches back up. You think it's going down, then it lurches back up. Yeah, being in the water with that would be a nightmare.